This is Man to Men, the premier audio journal for men living faithfully, leading courageously. I'm Jared Musgrove. Every Live Faithfully series episode is designed for man-to-men discussion, equipping you and the men in your community to live faithfully with God and one another. We're beginning a series called Connecting Proverbs, but this isn't the book of Proverbs like you've probably experienced it. So you guys, what I've learned in about 10 years of studying this literature is that the Bible's Proverbs collection is no random assortment of topics that are just thrown together only to be reprinted, preached, or applied in the order you decide. The Proverbs collection is one God-authored story. It's the story of an epic life. It could be your life. It is not the fortune cookie collection of the Bible. It's the cohesive compass to help you find your way. You've never read Proverbs like this, but for the sake of your life, you need to. And that's what we are exploring on this season of Live Faithfully episodes. Now, we covered in our introduction that the Proverbs collection was originally designed to be a leadership manual for young men that they received early in life and carried with them throughout the duration of their entire life and leadership. It was originally designed to help you connect. That's chapters 1 through 9. That is, in a sense, you are a young man still in your father's house, and he is giving you black and white wisdom, the choice between two roads, the choice between two women, as we will see. And it is all about relationship, that connection. And then there's probably the majority of the Proverbs that you think of Proverbs, seemingly random wisdom literature that is put together. And I call these the fight Proverbs. These are chapters 10 through 24 of the collection. And the reason they're coming at you seemingly so randomly is because that entire section is meant to emulate what real life is like. What day do you walk out the door? Or maybe before you even hit the shower or get dressed in the morning, do you have not maybe 15 to more wisdom decisions that you have to make? And none of them seem to fit together, but that is your life. That is the fight of life. That's what Proverbs chapters 10 through 24 is meant to emulate and give you wisdom on how to navigate and fight faithfully and live a righteous life. Then there's a really cool section of Proverbs called what I call the leadership Proverbs. These are Proverbs collected by King Hezekiah when he was leading faithful reform within the kingdom. And Proverbs chapters 25 through 29 are these king Proverbs, or these leading Proverbs, where you can look at these, and this is how a wise leader, a righteous leader, orders his life, from his words to his relationships to the way that he approaches things. And then the final section of Proverbs is what I call the Illuminate Proverbs. These are Proverbs chapters 30 through 31. There's not many of them. This is, in a sense, walking through the lifeline of a man at the end of his life, looking back as a sage, looking back on what really matters and the lessons he's learned. And then you get into Proverbs 31, which is really the true statement of wisdom and the culmination of the entire collection. Here's why we go through all that. When you sync up your own life with the ancient design of the Proverbs collection, you find your way with God and one another. We're spending this season in the connecting Proverbs. We're not going to do the entire collection. Maybe we'll keep going. But right now, we're just going to focus on those connecting Proverbs, chapters 1 through 9. This is a highly unified block of instructions given to a son by a loving father. The lesson is that life and leadership begin with listening. Now, in Proverbs 1 through 9, it's all about that capacity for relationships. It's about engaging our heart. It's about beginning in righteousness. This father is sharing with his son, as if to say, son, before you leave home, there are some black and white choices, and I want to give you a comparison of two roads you can take in your life, and ultimately two relationships that you as a man must choose between before you head out into the world. Don't get caught off guard once you get out there. I'm trying to give you what you need now as far as the beginnings of this compass to navigate for the rest of your life. Now, here's the thing, guys. The Proverbs collection wasn't meant just to stay with young men. It's meant to begin with young men and then follow every man for the rest of his life. Because everything in the collection, these are still the choices that we faced most fundamentally. Never too late to start living this way. But the basis for a full, rich, significant life of faith and courageous leadership starts with these words in Proverbs 1 through 7. That's our topic today. The Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. To know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. some beginning guidance for you and your group on all of that after this. Hey fellas, if you're a college student or you know a college student who's ready to make a difference immediately after graduating, well, Reliant Mission, friend of the show and our sponsor, has opportunities for you. They partner with top churches and ministries worldwide like the Austin Stone, Summit Church, and the International Mission Board, just to name a few. They offer incredible 1 to 2 year support-based residencies. And these aren't just any internships, guys. These are opportunities to deeply engage in meaningful ministry while being trained and developed for what God may be calling you to next. You could spend the first or even second year outside of college growing in your faith, developing tangible skills, all while making a kingdom impact. Whether you're called to serve locally or on global missions, these residencies are your gateway to full-time ministry. If you're interested, you can find out more at reliant.org. That's reliant.org. And they'd love to hear your story. You can email the guys directly at partner@reliant.org to set up a time where you can share what God's doing in your life and explore the local and global opportunities that are available to you right now. College guys, is your ideal summer job a place where you can get paid, gain important skills, and make a gospel impact? If so, then working camp is your dream summer job. You could spend your summer wearing a suit and tie in a cubicle, or spend it investing in the lives of over 100,000 campers nationwide who come to one of Lifeway's camps this summer. Friend of the show and regional sponsor Lifeway offers 3 national options for serving at camp: Fuge, Student Life, and CentraKid. All will pay you, they'll train you, and they'll give you plenty of opportunities to serve the church while building critical skills and a work ethic that will serve you well in any future career. And no guarantees, guys, but you could also meet your future wife. You can get more information about the job, not your future spouse, on the links in our show notes. So please make your summer count. Consider working camp. The team at Southeastern Seminary believes that last words are meant to be lasting words. That's why Jesus' command to go and make disciples drives everything that they do. With an experienced faculty and a community committed to this mission, Southeastern Seminary will equip you to serve the church and fulfill the Great Commission wherever you are called, men. So join them for a campus visit and check out sebts.edu to learn how you can be equipped for ministry as a faithful disciple maker. We're back, looking at the first 7 verses of the Proverbs collection. These stand alone, even though most of the collection stands in full sections as a cohesive leadership compass for men. But this prologue sets the stage for all that is to come. Here's what we mean, and you'll see an insight into the God design of this collection. It's not random, but one of the greatest teaching documents ever created, crafted, or even arranged in this entire collection. The collection begins with an opening teaching. This verses 1 through 7. Before we get into the black and white choices on the constructive quality of good and the destructive quality of evil, before we meet Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly and the roads they travel and the tables they set, all of which just is in these first 9 chapters of Proverbs, we're going to have the beginning of wisdom here in the opening words. Now, the collection's clear that its major author is Solomon, son of David, and Solomon created and collected these Proverbs during his reign as king of Israel. You can read about his substantial life in the first half of 1 Kings. In fact, I suggest you guys do so. It would only take about an hour or so for those first 12 chapters. They're near the middle of your Bible. Solomon asked God for wisdom, and God gave it to him. So we are leaning in and listening at this point, because here's the purpose of the Proverbs collection for you and all of us as men. Verse 2, to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight. Wisdom and instruction. This is just the practical skill of godly living faithfully. That's why we call these episodes what we do, is because we want to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words and insight. That is to comprehend and to receive and act on understanding that leads to godly living and living faithfully. Verse 3 says to receive instruction in wise dealing, all with righteousness, justice, and equity. Now, to receive it, in the original Hebrew, we're going to do a little bit of this as we walk through. To receive is a good translation. And another way of saying it is to take as is given the instruction in wise dealing or in prudence, that is navigation with wisdom. And you're to do this with all righteousness, walking with God, with all justice, acting righteously. The English Standard Version translates this as equity. The idea here is with uprightness, you are to do this. You're to deal with people the way God deals with people. These are the ethical acts of the righteous man and the leader. In verse 4, it goes on to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. You might also say to give prudence, to give shrewdness to the simple. That is an understanding of the way the world works and how to navigate that. To give prudence or shrewdness to the simple, you could say the young or the young men. Knowledge and discretion or strategy to young men. This is how you begin to act as a young man or even a grown man. You never outgrow the need for living out wisdom faithfully. You never outgrow the need for shrewdness or for knowledge and for discretion and a wise, godly strategy. All of this is just payment in full as you open the book of Proverbs, saying, this is what you're going to get if you continue on in this collection. This is going to be the leadership manual for the rest of your life. This is your compass. In verse 5, it says, let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. That is, let the wise hear and increase, or the original language kind of says something along the lines of, let him add to his learning. That is, you are forever a student. Always remain forever a student. That's something wise men do. You always admit that there's more you could learn. There's things you don't know. So let him add to his learning. And the one who understands, obtain, or in addition, acquire more guidance. Throughout the collection, especially in these first 9 chapters, we are addressing the young man and the young leader. And so any man who wishes to be wise never outgrows this invitation to be constantly curious, constantly adding to his learning, constantly obtaining, or in addition, acquiring guidance. It is the invitation for the rest of our lives. And we never outgrow this stuff. In verse 6, it says that these proverbs also exist to help you understand a proverb when it is given, and a saying or a parable. When it says to understand things in life, to understand a proverb or to understand a saying or a parable, it's saying proverbs exist to help you understand things in life that would otherwise dupe you or trip you up on your way. Proverbs is that cohesive compass to help you on the path. More about that in the coming weeks. We're going to be hearing that word a lot, the way, the path. And then finally, this first introduction to Proverbs. Verse 7 is really where it begins to come together. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. This is the big one, guys. This phrase, only with minor variations, appears nearly 15 times across the Proverbs collection, as well as other places in what is sometimes called the wisdom books or the writings of Scripture, particularly books of Psalm and Job. This is true of no other sentence in this literature. And this statement, the assertion that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, was Israel's most special possession. But that didn't mean all of life was made clear immediately once you said, yeah, I agree with that. It is the beginning. It will take the whole Proverbs collection, and with it, the testimony of the rest of Holy Scripture and your entire life to think and to live into the consequences implied by this assertion. But this is just the starting point. It tells us right there at the beginning. From this basis, Israel is led into areas of knowledge of a particular type and experiences with God of a particular type, an eternal and ultimately meaningful life that is also promised to you if you get into the book. We'll see some of those promises here in weeks to come. But here's a truth. God doesn't give wisdom or deep things to the exceptionally talented. He gives them to the eager, those eager to see him, to walk with him, to learn from him. Check almost any man mentioned in the Bible outside of Jesus, and nearly all of them, in fact, maybe all of them, are not the guys you'd pick to lead nearly anything. But God gave it to them. You know why? Because they were eager for God, to fear God. Sometimes we think it's not to be afraid of God. It is to be in awe of him. So much so that you'll do whatever he asks. This is the starting point, humility. I've often shared with other men, whether I'm counseling with them or we're talking as friends or fellow leaders, that lasting leadership begins with wisdom, and wisdom begins with curiosity. And you can only have curiosity, that is wisdom or a desire to learn, through humility. You admit there are things you don't know. Often, in fact, I'll go you once even further, walking back from leadership to wisdom, to curiosity, to humility. It leads to a fear of the Lord. That's the root. You have an awe of God. One of my favorite commentators on Proverbs said it this way: one only becomes competent and expert as far as the orders of life are concerned only if one begins from the fear of the Lord. God is the only one who puts a man into right relationship with the objects of his perception. God enables him to ask questions more pertinently and to take stock of relationships more effectively, and generally to have a better awareness of his circumstances. So this is all juxtaposed in Proverbs 1:7 with the fool, because this ending verse says that fools despise wisdom and instruction. You know what a fool is, guys? A fool is so habitually out of touch with reality that they make life miserable for themselves and others. Theirs is a chosen denseness. It's the cracked mirror of leadership, wisdom, curiosity, humility, and yes, fear of the Lord. The fools don't fear the Lord, and thus they can never bless others. Some questions for you guys in your community this week. One, I think it's great since we've got a much shorter passage. Read this passage out loud together as you meet in your group, as you meet with other men this week. And then talk about these questions. What stood out to you most in Proverbs 1:1-7? It's familiar or seemingly familiar to many of us, but we often don't dive in. So would you just listen through this Live Faithfully episode? What are some things that stood out to you? And then in your own words, each man share, what does fear of the Lord mean to your living, your leadership? And again, in your own words, each of you men around the circle share, is the fear of the Lord the controlling principle of all knowledge? Why is that true? Why would Proverbs make that argument? And finally, each of you share with one another, where are you needing wisdom right now? How can this group help you? And how can this group pray for you? What you have to know to lead transformationally, guys, to lead yourself, to lead others, and to lead fellow leaders, is that the fear of God leads to wisdom. That's the only way. It's the only path. It enables a man to acquire wisdom. It trains him for wisdom. That's Proverbs 1:1-7. Live faithfully. Man to Men is powered by Beta Upsilon Chi, the nation's largest Christian fraternity, commonly referred to as Bucks. We exist to equip and empower college men to live faithfully and lead courageously. You can find out more about Beta Upsilon Chi by transliterating our Greek letters and adding a .org. That's byx.org. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and consider giving to our work with college men across the country by following the individual partner link in the show notes. We are produced rather well, I might add, by the good gentlemen of the Good Podcast Company. Until next time, I'm Dr. Jared Musgrove with Man to Men.